Daeron died in the rubble, or Daeron survived. Which is which? Well, let's find out. Ormund Hightower knighted a boy who had not done anything yet, and by the end of that same hour, nobody could find the boy. Quite interesting, which is quite different from what Fire and Blood tells us. It is after Daeron flies Tessarion into the Battle of the Honeywine and saves Ormund and his army from defeat that he gets to knight him, dub him with the Valyrian sword Vigilance, and call him Daeron the Daring. House of the Dragon does something different entirely, which goes on to say Daeron does not deserve the knighthood. You don't knight someone until they have worked for it and actually proven themselves. And when the actual fight begins in Tumbleton, he does not even get to fight. He's just there watching until it is too late. Now we don't get to see what happens to him even, and with the books maybe we can theorize on possible outcomes. But is this the boy Ormund wants to be king? A dragon rider hiding behind walls as the actual fight goes on? But I don't blame him. It's all Ormund's doing, and now he just killed the boy or whatever. But the episode deliberately withheld that, and for some reasons that I will discuss with you going forward, Daeron is not dead. So what actually happened to him? Now let's start with that knighting. Ormund probably does not know what it means and what it takes to knight someone, or even the right words to use. He just mumbles some words together and says that the boy is a knight. Being called sir does not necessarily make someone a knight. It's often a reward given to someone who has proven himself. In Daeron's case, he has not flown or saved anybody. We cannot argue with the book version. The problem here is with the show version of Daeron. Like I said before, he proved himself in the books, something he has not done in the show. The only reason Ormund has for knighting him is so he can become a king. He's turning a 16-year-old prince into a banner that the Hightower host can march behind while the actual decisions stay with the madman who has been making them since Old Town. Daeron deserves better than this. The gentlest of Alicent's 3 sons. A boy sent away at 12 to be Ormund's cupbearer and squire. He's courteous, clever, and the most popular of them. Someone who grew up in the shadow of his brothers, but became more accustomed to following orders than giving them. Even when Ormund calls him Daeron the Daring in Fire and Blood, the boy will not take it. His answer is that the victory belongs to Tessarion. He sounds like my own son. But the show kept some aspect of him and deletes the other aspect of him. And that is by making him obedient, gives him the title, but don't allow him the victory that merits it. Daeron the Daring. Be honest, what has this boy done that proves he is daring? It doesn't even make sense to style him this way. But, well, it's their own family issue. I need not say so much about it. His dragon Tessarion has spent more than half of Season 3 shut inside the Sept at Tumbleton. When many in this war are looking for an opportunity to actually ride dragons to war, Tessarion is being babysit like what? A cat? The Sept itself is a place of worship in the middle of the market, and that's the best place they think of keeping this firepower. And that is a decision somebody made. This dragon is a fire-breathing weapon, and yet this commander has decided not to fire, and for all we know about Ormund, this isn't surprising at all. He marched from Old Town at the pace of a funeral. He who would not delegate, he went looking for Ulf himself instead of sending anyone. Ormund has a history of controlling people, and he's controlling both Daeron and his dragon. Except that's the last thing he controls before he broke his teeth. But I don't think HBO will just introduce this dragon only for it to be inside a temple and do nothing. Of course, Ryan Condal himself said in an interview that Tessarion has a great role to play in the story yet to come, which definitely is going to be Season 4. Moving on to the parley. Before the walls are ever hit, Daeron and Gwaine Hightower go around Ormund entirely, because they felt they had to do something before this man led them to their death. Gawain rides out to Daemon under a peace banner with Corlys in tow and puts an offer on the table on Daeron's behalf. The Greens drop the fight and the claim to the throne, and in exchange Daeron rules the Reach out of Old Town. This offer is what the Sea Snake himself calls a reasonable one. But Daemon is not the kind of person you can reason with. He's there for bloodshed, and blood he must spill. This is the same episode that the Queen did something we never expected she will be capable of doing. Given she's a woman, and her history of avoiding violence even when the situation demands it, she has the high septon cut down in his own sept. So nobody is doing parley here except this 16-year-old boy, Daeron. He offers to trade a crown for a province. Daemon sneers at it, slaps Gawain down, and sends him back to Tumbleton to die on a wall with a garrison of children. But then Ormund finds out about it anyway, and that infuriated him. Seems all that he's been building turns out to be in vain. But unfortunately for him, he never gets to confront either of them. He goes looking for Ulf instead, and then he dies. And that's when Gawain makes his last attempt to physically stop Daeron in the Sept, and then he is knocked unconscious by the time the battle ends. The end result of this is that every single man who has authority over Daeron Targaryen is removed from over him. The better part of it is his commander, who ends up being a burned corpse. And to be precise with what actually went on, because I intend to base my argument on this, Gawain finds Daeron in the Sept with the dragon and tries to talk him out of riding, then tries to stop him by force. It was Ulf arriving on Silverwing that interrupted their argument. I want you to keep this in mind because I will refer to this part later on. They did not resolve their argument on whether he will fly or not. And when the blacks thought he was there for them and they cheered on, he burned them. Ulf then turns Silverwing on the town itself and burns everything down. Gawain goes down in the blast, but luckily for him, he survives. He wakes on rubble, crawls, calls for his nephew, and hears or finds nothing. But if you noticed late in the sequence, there is a brief piece of dragon footage that appears to show Tessarion, though you could argue that was Silverwing in the air with Caraxes on her, fire clipping her tail, and Vermithor entering the frame. And by then, Hugh had already left Vermithor to search the town on foot for his wife. He is on the ground weeping over her body minutes later, and only after that does he get back on Vermithor to chase Ulf down with Daemon. The confusion is the fact that we do not get to see Daeron's body, and we do not see him at all. He's the piece missing here, and that leaves his fate ambiguous. The show has made everything crystal clear. Everybody that has to die, we saw them die, and the fact that we did not see Daeron die should give you a clue. That does not mean he's unkillable, and it doesn't suggest he's not supposed to die in this war. Tumbleton is actually 2 battles in the books, and it is in the second one that Daeron died. In the first, Ulf and Hugh turn their cloaks, Ormund is killed, and the town is sacked. Daeron survives it, and what he does afterwards is the only stretch in the entire dance where he acts like a man with a will of his own. He orders Sir Honeywine Hightower to stop the sack, and Hobart is useless. He tries to buy Ulf off by naming him Lord of Bitterbridge. Hewhammer stands up and says that he should be the one to be king, and Daeron throws a cup of wine in the man's face. And Hugh tells him to his face that little boys should be more mannerly when men are speaking, and that his father did not beat him often enough. Then he starts wearing an iron crown. So these lords from the Reach, the Caltrops, plotted to murder both Hugh and Ulf. The 2 who had turned their cloaks, and because of what they did, are known as the 2 betrayers. But they will only do that if the prince gives his consent. The prince did approve of that, and it was 2 days later during the Second Battle of Tumbleton that he perished. There's just one battle of Tumbleton so far, and if they did kill him here, then his death arrived too soon. And that means Daeron doesn't get to become who he becomes later on, a man with his own will and plans, and not just the puppet boy that Ormund created out of him. Then I wouldn't see why the show brought Daeron into the story in the first place, because his character would have been useless. Ulf is still alive, Hugh is alive, and the Dragonseed story has to continue, which we will need Daeron for that. We say Daeron is the gentlest of the brothers, right? But this war has a way of making a villain out of good people. And the more reason that I want him alive is because of this, and by the time I finish, you may style me a villain too. But this is war, and we don't play nice. So after Maelor is torn apart by a mob at Bitterbridge, Daeron comes back to that town and refuses Lady Caswell any mercy at all, and Tessarion burns the place. This is a boy we have said good things about, yet he burns a town because a child that he loves dies there. And this is something the show hasn't shown yet. Maelor is even dead with Helena, so I don't know how this plays out, if it will at all. But we don't expect everything to be black and white from the books. That much I understand. But it goes on to prove there's still a fight left in Daeron that he has to live to finish somehow, some other way. Now to the part that I think explains why George wrote it this way at all. Fire and Blood does not merely say Daeron died. It says his death is regarded as mysterious, and that his body was never identified. There are 3 accounts. Some say Black Trombo cut him down with a morning star as he stumbled out of his tent with his clothes on fire, that some man-at-arms killed him with a sword without ever knowing who he was, and there's another that his burning tent collapsed on him. There was a time during the reign of Aegon III, several men turned up claiming to be Prince Daeron, who had come home, but these were all proven to be impostors. Aegon II had ordered giant statues of Aemond and Daeron raised in King's Landing, and Tyland Lannister cancelled the work during the Regency. So the boy was denied a monument just as he was denied a body. This takes me back to 1578, a moment in history when young King Sebastian of Portugal rode into a battle in North Africa and never came back, and the remains that were eventually returned convinced nobody. Portugal then spent generations waiting for his return. That's when 4 men stepped forward claiming to be him. And guess what? They were fake. So that's what happens when a king or prince dies and a body is not found. Pretenders just step forward claiming to be the one, and it is the same that happened with Daeron. I can stand on this, use what the show did, and tell you that Daeron is dead, and that is the show's way of depicting Daeron died, and his body was never found as it happened in the books. But I won't do that because it's too early for that. But since this is a theory, with all the logics presented, you can decide what you want to accept as the truth. My part is to present 2 sides of the argument. And so here's what I personally think happened. I think Daeron somehow got Tessarion out after Gwaine asked him to take cover when Silverwing burns the town. And because of the blast, he got separated from Gwaine. So these things I will put my name to, and that is Daeron surfaces early in Season 4, alive, with Ormund dead and Gwaine concussed, and nobody left in that camp who can give him an order, which is exactly what the finale spent its last act arranging. If Daeron becomes a free agent, what then will the show be setting him up for next? Does the show set him for Bitterbridge when Maelor already died in the womb in King's Landing? The easiest part of this is to believe Daeron perished with, of course, no body to show for it. But, like I said, I do not wish for that to happen, which is why I still hold on to my Daeron is alive theory. What do you also think? Let me know, and by next 2 years, if we're still alive, we shall see who is right. And oh, if he's dead, maybe we may get a confirmation from the show's creators before then.